Hey y'all! Today we get to dig into Romans 7 verses 8 through 12. Let's begin. Don't you remember how it was? I do, perfectly well. The law code started out as an excellent piece of work. What happened, though, was that sin found a way to pervert the command into a temptation, making a piece of forbidden fruit out of it. The law code, instead of being used to guide me, was used to seduce me. Without all the paraphernalia of the law code, sin looked pretty dull and lifeless. I went along without paying much attention to it. But once sin got its hands on the law code and decked itself out in all that finery, I was fooled and fell for it. The very command that was supposed to guide me into life was cleverly used to trip me up, throwing me headlong. So, sin was plenty alive and I was stone dead. But the law code itself is God's good and common sense, each command sane and holy counsel. And there are a lot of things to unpack here to me. One, the idea of taking something good and it being made pointless by corruption. There are plenty of examples in today's world, and I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm just, from my view, there are issues with, like Monsanto, trying to grow corn in the Sahara, trying to feed the world. Okay with that. Injecting human growth hormone into plants, maybe not. Unions, really good when people didn't have any real say about their working. When unions become a voting bloc, that becomes a problem. And it strikes me that we have an analog for this, or at least an expression. The path to hell is paved with good intentions. And many of these ideas, remarkably useful at the time. Once society had gotten to the point where they were no longer needed, they should have been done away with. But because human beings are creatures of habit, they weren't. And we end up creating new problems. It strikes me that sin inevitably will try and work its way into anything. And it does so through the human heart. There are the externals of the world, absolutely. But it's the heart that can take root. It's the going from wanting to do something selfless to being driven by the greed. And, there's also the idea that strikes me of fighting over legal gray area. Well, the letter of the law says this. What's the spirit of the law say? Because the letter of the law may say, well, at this point it's a monopoly. The spirit of the law says there are 5 or 6 corporations that should be shattered into multiple pieces right now. Disney, Alphabet, a couple others. But that's the issue. It's the fighting over the gray area, and it becomes one of these ideas of, well, it doesn't say it. No, because you're using it wrong. We use it wrong. And I think it comes down to, do we see the Bible as trying to legislate morality? Do we perceive it as God pointing the lightning gun to our head saying, do what I tell you or I'll smite you where you stand? Or do we read it as God trying to guide us, trying to live in a way that makes us truly human? Because a lot of the time we go, humans are animals. That's not justification for behavior. And if anything, to me, that strikes me as a cop-out. Like, well, we're animals. Do better. Just do better. All of humanity, myself, all of us. We've got to do better. And it's like, as I'm digging into this, it's that very much idea of how are we seeing it? Because if we look at God's law and we say, oh, it's a loving parent keeping us from killing ourselves. Because that's the thing. If God was purely, just as a thought experiment, if God was all the hate that most people think he was in the Old Testament, why is the human species a thing? Because, I will never wipe out the world with a flood again. That still leaves billions of options, to say nothing of the fact that we're in an intergalactic shooting gallery. So, if God truly wanted us done away with forever, why are we here? I don't think God is mean. I think we as a species can be kind of dumb. And when that corruption works itself in, we kind of get comfortable with it. We kind of end up choosing the lesser of two evils. And I know this is perhaps a little off topic in sound, but to me, it strikes me as a truism that we have to at least note that corruption does try to work its way in. It's something we have to be on guard for. Like with the law, very good, holy, sane, wise counsel. Priests that use it to do as they will and subvert others to be in a position of power, that's not what's in there. In fact, I would argue that is the exact opposite of what we're called to do. But it's using the letter to ignore the spirit of the thing. And I think that's one of the issues we have in the West, is we tend not to think about the spirit of things. The spirit's in things. Very Platonian. Well, if I can't test it with my five senses, no. Dig deeper. Test the things I'm saying against your own experiences. Have you ever known something good to stay good consistently and not become corrupted? I haven't. And it's because of the heart of those in it. That's where everything has to start. Because if you want a corporation to stop acting like a tyrant, the people in it have to change. If we want the world around us to be a nicer place to live, we have to influence it. Be the change you want to see in the world. An expression that I don't like the bumper stickerness of. I like the core of it, though. Because if we want this world to be a nice and beautiful, wonderful place, we need to start acting nice and wonderful and beautiful. And hate is not a beautiful thing. These behaviors, they don't add beauty, they detract. And I ask that as we go through each day, we have opportunity to say, okay, why am I doing? Because all of this requires deep and careful thought. And it goes right to the verse where Jesus, I believe it's Jesus, it's either Jesus or Paul, says, when you find yourself careful, you find yourself cared for. When we put other people first, God takes care of us. It's just character. So try, for myself, I try to follow the sane and holy commands. Also, don't self-flagellate when I fail. I'll beat myself up about it. I learned, or try to. And sometimes I have to be learned, because I can be thick. But I think that's one of the ideas here. How do we use these different things? How do we look at them without having them become forbidden fruit? And I think that starts here, in the heart, for each of us. I will see you guys tomorrow for 13, maybe a little more. See you then. Bye.